clarity, and charity. Heard around the world on your Android and Apple mobile devices.
The Simple Truth, rising up to explore the difficult topics of real life. Join us as we proclaim the good, the true, and the beautiful with the simple truth of Jesus Christ and His holy Catholic Church through Scripture, tradition, and the Catechism. And now, your host, Jim Havens.
It is great to be back with you on The Simple Truth, where we proclaim the life-giving reality of Jesus and His Catholic Church. We consecrate everything to the Sacred Heart of Jesus through the Immaculate Heart of Mary and the pure, strong heart of Saint Joseph. It is Catholic Family Men Monday, where we primarily direct the content to men, most especially to those of us who are called to the vocation of marriage and family in order to build up husbands and fathers in Christ, to bless the family and sanctify the world. But make no mistake, everyone is certainly most welcome to listen in and or watch. Plenty here that is valuable and applicable to all. Very important show today. If you listened or watched last Tuesday, we featured Tom Walton sharing some of his personal testimony. Tom is a Catholic engineer, inventor, advanced materials business founder, and incubator. He's also a big advocate for the good work of Dr. Joseph Nicolosi Sr. Tom is back with us today to share some comments as we present our topic, the uncanceling of Dr. Joseph Nicolosi Sr.'s work. Tom Walton, thank you for being back with us again. How are you today?
Too blessed to be stressed again. It's true.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you for proposing this topic today, being a catalyst for it. Explain what you mean. What do we mean here today when we say that Dr. Nicolosi's work has been canceled? And tell us briefly why you think his work has been canceled.
Yes. Dr. Joseph Nicolosi, who actually founded the Thomas Aquinas Psychological Clinic in Encino, California, was actually evaluating for the St. John Seminary in Camarillo, California. And a lot of those candidates he found had same-sex attraction disorder. And he notified the archdiocese, and the archdiocese didn't listen to him. And they allowed all those candidates in the 70s and 80s into the priesthood. Well, I quickly learned, just looking into it, in 1961, February 1961, Pope John the 23rd absolutely forbid any men with same-sex attraction from getting into the seminaries. And this is where a lot of the problems started. And then I learned from Dr. Judith Reisman, who was introduced to, who actually found out who Alfred Kinsey was, who actually was a homosexual, writing a book called Sexuality of Human Male, and claimed that 10% of the American male population was homosexual. He, for 70 years now, has tried to justify his own homosexuality as being normal. And that's where this whole LGBT fraud comes from. And I think young people who have very good, senses on, what is right and what is wrong, actually from their own senses on a lot of the garbage that's out there, they're starting to realize that this whole LGBT thing is a fraud.
Yeah, there's so much packed in to Dr. Joseph Nicolosi Sr.'s work that we want to unpack today and put it out there. This is very, very important. But at the core, it really seems his work and his message is quite simple, but it exposes a core error in psychology that has taken root in our culture and that people do not want exposed, therefore they stand against it. It is about resolving unwanted same-sex attraction. His message is simple. There's a choice. Change is possible. So we're going to get to a lot of clips today. We're going to hear straight from Dr. Joseph Nicolosi Sr. in his words, interviews that he has done in the past. He did pass in 2017, I believe. But first, we're going to hear from his son, still living, continuing on the good work of his father, Dr. Joseph Nicolosi Jr. Let's begin with an interview from about a year ago with Joe Jr., talking about how his father got involved in counseling men with same-sex attraction. Here it is.
How do you get involved in counseling men with same-sex attraction?
So he was in charge of psychological assessment at St. John's Seminary in the late 70s, early 80s. And his job was to screen out priests psychologically, individuals who want to join the priesthood. And so he would find a lot of these guys had a lot of psychological difficulties, he would tell the seminaries about this, and then the seminaries would go ahead and accept these priests anyway into the priesthood. And many of them had same-sex attraction. And he would get to know them, talk with them, and he began to notice some patterns over time. And with the basic common threads he would notice over time was that these men would often report distant, detached relationships with their fathers, and alternating between detached and critical. Mothers who were higher anxiety, sometimes over-involved, intrusive, and the sons themselves were temperamentally sensitive. And if there was an older brother, it was usually a feared, hostile relationship with the older brother. And when you put these factors together, my father believed, this would create difficulty in the individual gaining a sense of gender completeness in himself. And according to the psychoanalytic theory, kids go through different developmental stages, and around 2.5 years of age is the first time where the boy has the additional developmental task that the girl doesn't have, which is to disidentify from the mother and identify with the father. That's the boy's extra developmental task. And in homes where this dynamic is taking place, where it can make it more difficult for the boy to make that shift, and the boy will try to reach out to the father, experience difficulty in bonding and identifying with the father. He'll retreat back to the mother and not make that gender identity shift. And as these men get older, females are their closest friends. They know them like the back of their hands. Men feel mysterious and different. And this young boy, as he gets older, in early adolescence, he develops a longing for male attention, affection, approval, which eventually becomes sexualized. And the boy will often try to put these thoughts out of his mind. He'll try to ignore them. He'll try to pray that they go away. But nevertheless, these feelings persist, and they become sexualized increasingly over time. These men now live in a culture that tells them that if you have these attractions, gay is who you are. It's your identity. It's who you'll always be. And on one hand, the gay label brings relief. It brings a sense of like, oh, there's a name for this. But on the other hand, the gay label limits these men and puts them in a particular box and sequesters them away from the general world of men. And so many of these clients had a longing for attention, affection, approval. They come to my father, and what my father began to notice is that when these men grew and deepening in their male connections, that they would report spontaneously that their same-sex attractions began decreasing. And so that was my father's story. That's what he noticed, and he wrote several books about that and developed a theory.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to give you those books published, those published books by Dr. Joseph Nicolosi Sr. in just a moment. But first, let's just finish up here with Dr. Joseph Nicolosi Jr. on following the science here. Here's Joe Jr. explaining one evidence-based, data-driven, large-scale longitudinal study. Here it is.
So published in the Journal of Human Sexuality, and the whole article is free. It's available online for anyone who wants to read it. There were 75 participants, so it's a large-scale longitudinal study. They tracked these clients over a couple of years, and they found that these individuals, these men who did this therapy, noticed statistically significant decreases in their homosexual thoughts, feelings, behaviors, statistically significant increase in the heterosexual thoughts, feelings, behaviors, and a significant shift toward a heterosexual identity. So we're not talking about behavior modification. We're talking about the thoughts, the feelings, and even the identity are all shifting. And as well as that, we notice increased improvements in emotional well-being. For example, decreases in anxiety, depression, or suicidality, for example. Those things went down. And so we see that these clients are psychologically better off after the therapy. Their sexuality is shifting. And what's perhaps most surprising of all is that the actual method of the therapy is just trauma therapy. That's the kicker. Like, we're literally just treating childhood traumas. We're not doing anything else. In fact, we tell our clients, I tell my own clients, don't try to change your sexuality. That could just interfere. Don't try to change anything about yourself. Just resolve early childhood trauma methods using this evidence-based approach. And as a spontaneous byproduct, you may notice shifts in your sexuality. And sure enough, that's exactly what we're seeing.
All right. That's Dr. Joseph Nicolosi Jr. talking about his father's good work and now his continuing work. And so what we are talking about here is resolving early childhood trauma, where you have to make this distinction, very important distinction about symptoms and root causes, and that childhood trauma is at the root of this, of same-sex attraction, and this is at the root of many other problems as well. Many other symptoms come from childhood trauma, many other psychological disorders as well, and so we're going to get into some of this, but this is so important to understand this distinction, to get into many more distinctions that are so important here, and you can go to reintegrativetherapy.com for Joe Jr.'s website. That's reintegrativetherapy.com for more information there. Joe Sr.'s website, josephnicolosi.com, josephnicolosi.com, and you will find his published books there. First, 1992, Reparative Therapy of Male Homosexuality, 1994, Healing Homosexuality, 2002, A Parent's Guide to Preventing Homosexuality, 2009, Shame and Attachment Loss, The Practical Work of Reparative Therapy. And so this is why Dr. Nicolosi Sr.'s books have been banned from Amazon, why people have been trying to ban all therapy that would try to get at the root of what's going on here, because it destroys the very foundation of the argument of this same-sex attraction, this homosexuality, being an identity. It is not an identity. It is not an identity. It is stemming from childhood trauma, right? There is no gay gene. You are not born this way. This is scientifically proven at this point. We're going to get into the science on that a bit later as well, but so many don't know these truths because it's so unpopular to say them, and there's so much deception about trying to hide these truths from people, which is why we are devoting a show to this, uncanceling the good work of Dr. Joseph Nicolosi Sr. We're going to be back more with our special guest, Tom Walton, who's going to be commenting on this as we go, and a lot of clips coming up that you want to make sure to hear. We're going to be right back on The Simple Truth. Stay tuned.
The Catholic Drive Time, weekday morning, 7 a.m. on the Station of the Cross and the iCatholic radio app. Hi, this is Joe McLean, host of the Catholic Drive Time morning show, joining you on the Station of the Cross each weekday morning at 7 a.m. We'll keep you informed and inspired with insightful guests and breaking news stories of the day. We'll see you then. May God love you. Praise be to Jesus.
Do you love listening to the Station of the Cross on your car radio, but sometimes find yourself driving outside the listening area? Never miss another minute of your favorite show. Download the iCatholic radio app so you can listen anywhere in the world 24 hours a day. The iCatholic radio app is available for your phone in the Apple Store or for your Android phone in Google Play. Visit thestationofthecross.com for more information.
Come to the St. Thomas More House of Prayer and discover the prayer that will change your life. The St. Thomas More House of Prayer is a Catholic retreat center dedicated to praying and promoting the Liturgy of the Hours, the prayer of the Church. The Liturgy of the Hours is prayed each day, starting with the Office of Readings at 5:30 a.m. and ending with night prayer at 8 o'clock p.m. So whether you're an individual or a group, schedule your visit today. Go to liturgyofthehours.org or call 814-676-1910. That's 814-676-1910. We would love to help you experience the Liturgy of the Hours and discover the prayer that will change your life.
to The Simple Truth. Jim Haven's here with our special guest today, Tom Walton. He's a Catholic engineer. He's also an advocate for the good work of Dr. Joseph Nicolosi Sr., and that is our topic today, uncanceling the good work of Dr. Nicolosi Sr. And we're going to be getting into, in this segment, this segment, all of these segments today are action-packed as far as the clips go. I wish we could open phone lines and get your voice in on this as well, but we've got a lot to get to in terms of the clips. Our strategy is to play the clips off the top of the segment, and me and Tom will comment a bit at the end here regarding how much time we have at the end of the segment. But you're going to hear two interviews where these clips are coming from today for the rest of the show. Both Catholic Answers interviews, one from 2013 with the host Patrick Coffin, the other from 1998 with host Jerry Usher. It's a treat to hear these guys back on the air once more in this way. And as you hear this, so Tom provided these interviews for us. I guess they're no longer on the Catholic Answers website. So what you're hearing is valuable history right here, but it's Dr. Joseph Nicolosi Sr. in his own words. Here in this first clip, he's getting into a very important distinction in language between homosexual, same-sex attraction versus gay. Now we would say also LGBT or LGBTQ plus, whatever you want to say. There's a very important distinction about how we use these terms and why, a distinction between person and behavior. And here it is from Catholic Answers 2013 with Patrick Coffin. Here it is.
Do we give away too much by using the language of I am gay or he is gay? Just talk about the distinction the Church has always made in sound psychology as well between person and behavior.
Exactly. I think that the word gay is a very problematic term. I don't like to use the word gay unless there's a specific definition for it. We use the word homosexual. Now, now the gay activists have been successful in getting people to think that homosexual and gay are synonymous. They're not synonymous. Gay is a social, political identity. Homosexual is simply a description of an orientation or an inclination. So my clients, the clients that come to the Thomas Aquinas Clinic, are homosexual, but they are not gay identified. Mm-hmm. Now, it's very disturbing to me that you will have bishops and priests talk about gay people. Mm-hmm. We're not, gay is a social, political identity. It's separate. We should be talking about people with a homosexual problem. Now, it's very interesting because historically, homosexual was a description of a behavior, and then it became elevated to be the label of an individual. When we say the alcoholic, we're not saying that it is normal and natural for him to be in a drunken state. Mm-hmm. But through the manipulation of words and through sound bites, the word homosexual now is synonymous with the person. It describes the person, mm-hmm. rather than describing a quality or a trait or an inclination of the person.
All right, so there is the first clip. Again, the distinction between person and behavior in these terms, homosexual or same-sex attraction versus gay or LGBT or LGBTQ+. And just want to say real quick here, Father James Martin, in his deceptive way where he goes around advocating really for the upside-down nature of what the culture pushes, this LGBTQ radical sort of push that this is an identity, that you're born this way. This is what Father James Martin is pushing. He is a wolf in sheep's clothing and shepherd's clothing as a priest. He ought to be condemned. His work ought to be canceled, and these bishops ought to stand up against it. But sadly, he's quite prolific right now in the church and in the culture. But that's one of the things that he tries to do most of all, is try to get people to adopt this term LGBT as a way to, in their language, be adopting that this is an identity rather than it is an inclination, a psychological disorder with a root cause in childhood trauma. He doesn't want to admit any of that. And so here, let's continue on. Here's Jerry Usher, the host of Catholic Answers 1998, is where this comes from. This caller calls in from Portland, Oregon. Pretty lengthy call, but very, very important. A lot in this clip. Here it is.
Sam, who's calling us from Portland. Is that Oregon, Sam?
Hello.
Are you in Portland, Oregon?
Yes.
Okay, welcome to the show, Sam. What's your question for Dr. Nicolosi?
My question for Dr. Nicolosi is, and I got to be quick, in our diocese, we have an organization called GALO, G-A-L-O, and they endorse marching in gay pride parades, maybe even going to gay bars, same-sex unions, not marriages, but unions. Now, I don't know if these guys are leading chaste lives or celibate lives or not, but let's say they are. What would be your opinion on the whole idea of a union, church unions between two men, whether they're straight, not straight, but celibate or not? And then my second question really quick is, I know it's not the practice of this show to mention anybody by name, but our two previous archbishops have endorsed Galo, and one of them has gone on to become a cardinal. The other one will probably be a cardinal. Now, these are very high-ranking prelates.
That's a problem. That's the problem of the church.
Who have the ears of the Pope.
Sure.
Now, I tend to agree with you, Dr. Nicolosi. Nonetheless, you're one voice crying out of Southern California, whereas it seems to be the voice of these big men in the church seems to be just the opposite. Now, I'll listen to your answer.
Let's take these one at a time here. First of all, Dr. Nicolosi, your views of the approach to trying to encourage homosexuals to be celibate and chaste and yet still participate in gay activities.
Sure. I think it's ridiculous. I think it's absurd. It's absolutely absurd. Now, let's go back a step, and I think this is a fundamental problem in the church today, especially in the United States. First of all, if you're Catholic, you should reject the title, the self-label of gay. You cannot be gay and Catholic. Now, if you understand what the point that I'm trying to make right now, this is the most important thing that I want to say in this program. We're going to be on for an hour, but if you get this, it's worth it. You can hang up, you should turn your radios off, go sit in the backyard, because this is it. Homosexual is a description of a condition. It's a description of a psychological condition. The person finds themselves having same-sex attractions, period. There's nothing sinful about it. However, I make the distinction between homosexual and gay. Gay is a social political label, and gay means this is who I am. God made me this way, and if there's something wrong, if you don't like it, you have the problem. In other words, gay is saying, it's claiming same-sex attraction as an intrinsic part of oneself. And that is the foot in the door for the great amount of confusion in the church. I am totally opposed to any kind of Catholic ministry that has the word gay in it, because when you have the word gay, like Aglow or the Los Angeles Office of Gay and Lesbian Ministry, as soon as you have the word gay or lesbian, these are political terms. You're saying these are a separate group of people. What you're saying by implication, and this is why the ramifications to the word gay are enormous, what you're saying is God created two kinds of people, heterosexual people and homosexual people, straight people and gay people. And when you do that, what you do is you create what we call a gay anthropology, as distinct from the natural law. The natural law is God made all people heterosexual. The foundation of Catholic doctrine is all people are heterosexual. Now, some people might have a problem either because of biological or environmental or a combination of both or whatever. But God did not make people homosexual.
So your feeling is that whole idea would not be a healthy one?
Absolutely.
What about the second question that Sam had with regard to high-ranking churchmen who would back organizations that use terms like gay and lesbian and so forth?
That's a problem. It's a problem. And I don't know if these bishops are fully aware of the error that they're making, either because they are being misled in terms of their own political or theological agenda, or if these are individuals who are dealing with the same problem, namely homosexuality within their own lives, and that is distorting their accurate perception of the issue. That, I think, is a problem. I think it's a big problem.
Yeah, well,
now, if you look at Vatican doctrine, it's very, very clear. It's brilliant. Whatever comes out of the Vatican regarding homosexuality is very, very clear. But when it gets translated by the bishops and priests, especially in this country, there's serious, very, very subtle, but very, very serious distortions.
Sam, does that help with your question?
It does. I just want to, okay then, I heard one priest say that it was no more sinful for a chaste homosexual to frequent gay bars than it is for a chaste heterosexual to frequent heterosexual bars.
Okay, I'll tell you why that's false. I'll tell you why that's false.
Go ahead.
Because, and if you understand this, you understand, like I say, that foot in the door, that wedge that starts to crumble the entire theological and psychological system that we have. Because, remember, homosexuality is an intrinsic disorder. Homosexuality, by Vatican doctrine, is an intrinsic disorder. In other words, if a heterosexual is walking down the street and he finds himself sexually attracted to a woman, okay, of course he's called to chastity, but that attraction is normal. If a homosexual-oriented man walks down the street and gets a sexual attraction to another man, that is an intrinsic disorder.
Right.
And it's not sinful, because sin is determined by the behavior that follows from it. But what the gay advocates in our church are soft-pedaling and distorting is that the homosexual attraction itself, while not sinful, is an intrinsic disorder. So if a gay man, a homosexual man, goes in a gay bar, what's he doing? And he's checking out the guys. It's a very sexualized environment.
Well, there's something about the occasion of sin involved there, probably.
But even if he doesn't act on it,
right,
the same-sex attraction is an intrinsic disorder.
All right, Sam?
Sure, yeah, thanks a lot.
Okay.
Thanks for your phone call.
All right, real quick here. Here's Dr. Nicolosi, Sr., explaining why he used the term reparative therapy. What does that mean? What is it repairing? Here it is.
The concept is that your homosexual activity or homosexual drive is an attempt to repair something that was missing in your childhood, namely the 3 A's: attention, affection, approval. These are emotional needs.
Mm-hmm.
The American Psychological Association has no idea why a person is gay, but we see it time and time again, Patrick, that the male homosexual had a poor relationship with the father, distant, attached, critical, absent father, and he's trying to fulfill that emotional bonding, that normal father-son emotional connection, and he's been deprived, and he's seeking it out, and this desire has become sexualized. And that's the reparative drive. And the client comes to realize that he is using same-sex behavior to fulfill or to repair these emotional deficits. And so the course of therapy is to teach him how to fulfill these emotional needs in non-sexual ways, deeper friendships, that sort of thing. And it works.
Yeah.
The therapy works.
All right, heading into the break here. We're packing it in here, Tom Walton. Comment for us leading us into the break. What do you have?
Yeah, some awesome clips. They bring back, some very solid memories of my mission. I tried to prove him wrong at the beginning, seeing that book, A Parent's Guide to Preventing Homosexuality, but I found the exact opposite. Everything this man was looking into was right on. It was real science, which is rare in today's society.
You can go to his website, josephnicolosi.com. Find a list of all of his books there. You can get them there, josephnicolosi.com. Also, the website of his son, Joe Jr., continuing on the good work, reintegrative.com, reintegrative.com. When we get back, a lot more to go, a lot packed in there, but we're going to try to just unpack as much as we can today. Hope this is valuable to you. It ought to be. This is very, very important truth to get out there. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
This is Life News Radio. I'm Jim Anderson. In another of a long line of losses for the Biden White House, the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals is the latest to rule that government may not compel surgeries or therapies that violate doctors' rights of conscience. From abortion to gender therapies, attorneys at both Beckett Religious Liberty and at Alliance Defending Freedom have argued on behalf of medical workers that not only are their religious points of view at stake, but conscientious avoidance of harm to patients must not be contravened by government mandates. A California judge last week refused to help euthanasia activists. California law permits assistance in suicide, as in providing death pills. The activists wanted a court to change law and allow doctors to provide death by injection. This is Life News Radio. In other stories, Lee County, New Mexico is rejecting abortion as the nation's first county sanctuary for the unborn. Abortion advocates had viewed the county bordering Texas as a convenient abortion tourism destination.
With allegations of failing to report likely statutory rape and violating patient privacy, Indiana continues pursuing charges against an Indianapolis abortion doctor. The OBGYN used a patient's story to criticize abortion industry losses in court and in state law. In state actions, attorneys are asking Utah's Supreme Court to allow a ban on abortion. Utah is one of roughly a dozen states fighting abortion industry challenges to states' laws. Virginia legislators are preparing to seek a new ban against abortion in a bill offering human rights from conception. Bellevue, Nebraska is a town infamous for offering very late gestation abortions up to birth. Local abortion opponents may soon force action in a new ordinance or a public vote on banning abortion. For pro-life headlines delivered to your email address daily, sign up at lifenews.com. This has been Life News Radio.
Welcome back to The Simple Truth. Jim Havens here with Tom Walton, our guest today. We're commenting as we can on our topic today of the uncanceling of the good work of Dr. Joseph Nicolosi Sr. You can go to his website, josephnicolosi.com, for more information. You can find his books there and a lot more about him and his good work. But we are mostly playing some clips today, listening to Dr. Joseph Nicolosi Sr. in his own words, mostly from these two Catholic Answers interviews. Again, Tom provided us with these interviews. I believe they're no longer on the Catholic Answers website, but we're playing some highlights for you today that best exemplify and unpack this good work that so many have been trying to tamper down or not listen to, but is so important. Dr. Joseph Nicolosi Sr. This is the last rather lengthy clip. The rest will be shorter in nature. This one's rather lengthy, but it's worth it to stick with it because it really unpacks his work in understanding what is homosexuality. That's the question he's tackling here in this 1998 interview. Catholic Answers, Jerry Usher. Here it is.
To understand homosexuality, to understand what is homosexuality, you have to understand, first of all, homosexuality has nothing to do with sex. It's not about sex. It's not about sexual preference. Now, the gay agenda would have us believe the opposite. The gay agenda is promoting the idea repeatedly that the homosexual is just like the heterosexual in every way except for his sexual preference. Our position is that the homosexual is different in so many ways, and the fact that he's sexually attracted to members of the same sex is the tip of the iceberg. That's just a small manifestation of this deep underlying personality problem.
Kind of like the symptom of a deeper
Absolutely.
problem.
It's the symptom. It's the final product. It's like saying this person has a fever, he has a temperature, but really that's not the problem. The problem is he has a viral infection, okay? Mm-hmm. And the viral infection causes a fever. And in this analogy, gender identity, which is to say gender is a sense of one's masculinity or femininity. So gender identity is confused for the homosexual.
How does that happen?
All right. Basically, let's go back a step. Let's look at the normal development of the normal child. Let's start from the very beginning real quickly. The boy and the girl is first identified with the mother. The mother is what we call, in psychoanalytic language, the first love object, okay? The boy and the girl are first identified with the mother. However, the boy has the additional developmental task, unlike the girl, the boy has the additional developmental task of disidentifying with the mother and identifying with the father. The boy and the girl begin to realize that the world is divided between male and female. They never knew this before. They start to look around and they realize that the world is divided between men and women, boys and girls, male, female, he, she. Language comes in at this time. He, she, hers, his. And the boy has to make a decision. Now, he may temporarily postpone the decision by holding on to what we call the androgynous fantasy. The androgynous fantasy is, even though the world is divided between male and female, I can be both. I don't have to be male or female. I can be both or I can be neither. Mm-hmm. However, reality keeps pushing this child into making a decision. Like I say, language comes in, pink and blue and boy and girl, and reality pushes this boy to make a decision. So he disidentifies with the mother and connects with the father.
So it's a sort of natural drive then.
Exactly. What we call the natural masculine strivings. Now, if you want to talk theology, this is, God's given natural gender. The boy wants to fulfill his God-given masculinity. If you want to talk strictly biology, then we say that he is genetically pre-wired to be masculine. He reaches out to the father. If the father is warm and loving and receptive, and if the mother is willing to surrender her son, the boy will make the transition and he will make a masculine identification. If, however, and this is the case of the homosexual, if the father is distant, detached, aloof, critical, the boy will reach out to the father in a natural, loving way, but he will experience a hurt. He will experience what we call in our profession a narcissistic hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And he will get hurt from the father. He may try once or twice, depending on his temperament. If he's temperamentally sensitive, he will get hurt very easily. And eventually he surrenders his masculine strivings and goes back to the mother. And basically he says to the father, if you reject me, I reject you. If you make me unimportant, I make you unimportant. I'm going back to mom. And he maintains his primary identification with his mother.
In a sense, that's a rejection then of everything that father represents.
Exactly. And what does father represent? Masculinity. So the foundation of homosexuality is the early childhood rejection of masculinity. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So, now this seems counterintuitive. It's like, what? This doesn't make sense. It's like, I thought the homosexual wants to be close to men, and here he is rejecting men. Exactly. Because let's follow along what happens. Now the boy is 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, and while the pre-heterosexual boy, who is bonded with the father, develops a close relationship with other boys, and he has other male friends and buddies and same-sex peers, the pre-homosexual boy is detached from the father, detached from masculinity, and he is what we call the kitchen window boy. He looks out the window, and he sees these boys rough and tumble play, and he sees these boys playing sports, soccer or football or whatever, and he desires to be connected with them. He is curious. There's something about their physicality that draws him to want to connect with them. He wants to be one of the boys. He wants to be a part of them, but he doesn't know how to do it. He feels ill-equipped. He perceives his body as fragile. He perceives himself as not capable of connecting. It's easier for him to stay close to mother, to grandmother, sister, stay in the home. And most of these boys, the pre-homosexual boy, is typically more artistic. He'll play the piano. He stays home. He draws pictures. He sits at the kitchen table and chit-chats with mom and grandmother, while all the other boys are out there having this physical connectedness with other boys.
And that he longs for that.
He longs for that, exactly. He finds other boys exciting. There's something about their physicality. There's something about their boldness. There's something about their aggressiveness that he desires to be connected with. And I can tell you, Jerry, I see this every day. I just did a telephone session with this 18-year-old boy who just announced to his parents that he's gay. I say to them, what are the kinds of guys that you are sexually attracted to? They always say the same thing: outgoing, confident, physical, bold, social. And then I say to them, how do you wish you were different? I wish I was outgoing. I wish I was confident. I wish I had that outgoing masculine quality, because they desire it. So homosexuality is built upon envy. They envy the qualities of masculinity that they do not possess.
And so basically, if we can try to move ahead to where it becomes more of an erotic type of a
Exactly. So when the boy reaches 12, 13 years old, and sexuality starts to kick in, what we call the erotic transitional phase. Now remember, for him, females are familiar and males are mysteries. Okay, now for the heterosexual boy, females are mysteries and males are, common. I know them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so when sexual feelings come in, guess where they're going to go? They're going to go toward the mystery. They're going to go to the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
And they begin to feel erotic attractions. But erotic attractions, same-sex erotic attractions, are based upon the desire to connect, the desire to find his own masculinity within himself.
And I'm sure this is probably all done very subconsciously.
All subconsciously.
Yeah.
Completely subconsciously. However, and this is why we know this is true, because if it was completely subconscious, then, well, Nicolosi is making up this wonderful story. The fact is that once you explain this to the patient, they understand it. They've never read it, they've never heard about it, but it rings a bell, because for the first time in their life, it really speaks to their early experience.
Well, I want to talk a lot more about this. And
all right, we're going to continue on here. Now here's Dr. Joseph Nicolosi, Sr., talking about female same-sex attraction. How is that different? Here it is.
Is the origin of female homosexuality pretty much a mirror image of the origin of male homosexuality, or does it work differently?
Question. It's a little different. It's a little different. In some ways, it's mirror image, and in other ways, it's a little different. And let me try to do this real quickly. There are basically three causes of lesbianism. Number one, in early infancy, there's a failure for the mother-infant bonding that doesn't happen. There's some kind of breach in the early infant-mother symbiotic relationship, and the girl grows up looking for that motherly, that feminine connection. That's one type. The second type is the mirror image of the boy that we talked about earlier, where the girl disidentifies with her mother and identifies with her father. She wants to be a boy in fantasy. And this is the more masculine or the butch-type lesbian. The question is, why would a girl do such a difficult thing that the boy has to do, disidentify with the mother and connect with the father? And usually if the father is very domineering and charismatic and seductive, and the mother is weak, inadequate, maybe a victim of the father's abuse, the girl says to herself, if this is what it means to be a woman, I'm going to identify with him. So she denies her femininity, and she, in fantasy, develops a masculine identification. That's the second type. The third type is a girl who was sexually molested by a male. She has a fear of male sexuality, and for her, lesbianism is a retreat or a distraction from the challenge of heterosexuality, and that third category has the best prognosis. That's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, so it sounds like on both sides of this, effective, healthy parenting is critical and something that our society really needs to recover, it would seem.
Exactly. It still comes back to that, the ideal family situation. The good father, the good mother, and the good mother and father having a good relationship with each other.
And by good, obviously, you don't mean those who don't have their faults and flaws and sins and so forth, but just really trying to do it in a healthy way. And as you said, the relationship between parents is probably very critical as well.
And keep the emotional lines open. Keep that emotional connection going with the kids.
All right, one last clip to get in this segment. This is Dr. Nicolosi talking about the courage apostolate and the problems going on within those who are in positions of leadership within the Catholic Church. Here it is.
All we have is courage. Courage was founded by Father John Harvey. It's the only Orthodox ministry for people struggling with homosexuality. It is poorly funded. It exists in only 10% of the dioceses in this country, which means 90% of the dioceses in this country do not have a Orthodox ministry for people struggling with homosexuality. We are behind the times.
All right, we had Father Harvey on the program a few months ago, and it would seem like a program like his would be well worthy of much more support. Why do you think it's not being supported?
Because the leadership in our country are confused, and they're either confused because they're naive or because they are struggling with the homosexuality themselves. I'm sorry to say that.
You mentioned these church programs.
All right, as we head into the break, Tom, want to get your comment here, but just want to say, look, for anybody who wants to learn more about the percentage of homosexuality among our leaders in the Catholic Church, you can learn more by going to Father and Dr. Paul Sullen's RuthInstitute.com, I believe, is where you can find a lot more there on his good work. Let me just make sure here. Yes, RuthInstitute.org, actually, RuthInstitute.org. Go ahead, Tom.
Yes. During those late 70s, early 80s, Father Sullivan's found sometimes over 50% of the seminarians had same-sex attraction disorder. If that doesn't tell you a lot right there, I don't know what will. You know, Cardinal McCarrick himself lost his father at 3 years old. Father John Gagan, one of the biggest abusers in the Boston area, lost his father at 6 years old. Cardinal Bernardin lost his father at 6 years. It was 3 for McCarrick, 5 for Gagan, and 6 for Bernardin. So, and again, you need multiple combinations. This is a synergistic combination. Over-attached, intrusive mother, a bullying older brother. There always has to be these combinations, synergistic combinations that leads to it.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And you do not want to miss this final segment. It's all going to culminate here in the final segment. So much that is so important that we need to put forth very important distinctions, understandings. We're going to get into what can be done. We're going to be hearing some very powerful things in this final segment. But again, Father and Dr. Paul Sullins, according to a 2019 study, he said today half of all Catholic priests between ages 60 and 84, about 1 in 5 of those priests is homosexual. So meaning half of those are in that age bracket, and then 1 in 5 of those are homosexual. He's got a bunch more stuff. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Our bumper magnets are a great way to promote the gospel as proclaimed through Catholic radio. We hear all the time from new listeners who were introduced to the station through a bumper magnet. We'd be happy to send you a bumper magnet so that others can come to know our Lord. Just go to thestationofthecross.com and find our bumper magnet request button under the About tab. That's thestationofthecross.com under the About tab.
Here at the Station of the Cross, we proudly bring the truths of the Catholic faith to countless listeners through radio and mobile devices, and we're grateful for the feedback we've received.
I grew up Catholic Church, haven't been in the Catholic Church for decades, but I'm in the process of working my way back for the simple reason that I needed a place to listen to pro-life, pro-family messages. Catholic radio is it. It's a place to hear that message without all the political bias and all that's going on News Talk Radio.
It changed my life.
It's the only station I turn on.
The Catholic station is an answer to prayer.
It just couldn't be more fulfilling.
It's helped me learn more about the faith, and it's helped me to deepen my faith as a result of that.
It's on continuously in my house, day and night. You can't imagine how much I receive from that channel.
If you've been blessed by listening to the Station of the Cross, let us know. Call 1-877-888-6279, extension 112. Then share your testimonial with us.
Hello, this is Father Frank Pavone of Priests for Life. The Lord declares in His Word that even if a mother forsakes her own child, He will not forsake us. He uses the abandonment of one's own child as an example of the most unimaginable infidelity. This passage makes it clear that God cannot possibly think that the act of abortion is ever justified. Let's give mothers the strength never to forsake their children. This is Father Frank Pavone, National Director of Priests for Life.
The Simple Truth. Jim Havens here with our guest today, Tom Walton, an advocate for the good work of Dr. Joseph Nicolosi Sr. We are talking about uncanceling that work today by playing a generous amount of clips from interviews with Dr. Joseph Nicolosi Sr., commenting a little bit as we go. And final segment here, a lot to get to. This is Dr. Joseph Nicolosi Sr. more on the psychological process, particularly with regard to the process that is so-called coming out of the closet, embracing this gay identity. So this is different than just a homosexual inclination, a same-sex inclination. This is actually the process of going from there to actually embracing this gay LGBT identity. And that's where this really gets entrenched and becomes a massive problem that makes change less and less possible, yet change is possible. We're going to get to that too, but here's the psychological process. Here it is.
We make the distinction between homosexual and gay. To become gay, you have to go through the coming out process, coming out of the closet process. This is a psychological process in which you first you realize that you have these same-sex attractions when you're a teenager. Mm-hmm. Then you try to change it. This is the typical development of the gay identity. First, they discover it. They feel a great deal of shame. They feel very guilty about it. They try to change it. They try to pray it away. It doesn't work. They meet someone, a gay teacher, a gay counselor, a gay coach, someone who tells them, look, this is how you are naturally. In order to adopt a gay identity, you have to abandon the hope that you will ever be heterosexual.
Mm-hmm.
This is gay literature. This is not my own interpretation. In order to be gay, you have to first surrender the possibility of ever being straight, and then you adopt a gay identity.
All right, so that's the gay literature adopting this homosexual identity. You have to abandon the hope that you will ever be heterosexual, a very important step there that they're trying to bring people into. And I would include in that homosexual literature, that gay literature, Father James Martin, who has the wrong view on this, also New Ways Ministry. Both of these entities, Father Martin and New Ways Ministries, sadly getting a lot of run in our church today. They are prolific within the church under the noses of the bishops, even the Pope. This is a massive problem. It is evil. It is demonic, because what they are doing is they're part of this process where they are giving a place of welcome to say, this is your identity. Come accept your identity and abandon the hope that you will ever be heterosexual, when in fact they could actually receive good treatment on childhood trauma that may very well affect their same-sex attraction, their homosexual inclination. We know it is a scientific fact now that there is no so-called gay gene. Here is Dr. Nicolosi talking about this important truth that change is possible. Here it is.
Change is possible. If they want to change, if they think that if there's any desire on their part to come out of homosexuality and to develop a heterosexual life, change is possible. That's all we can say to them.
What about in Michael's own life?
What is your recommendation as a professional to a person, a father? How must be my attitude to a child with same-sex attraction?
Okay. Your attitude is, we love you. You're always our child. You're always our son. You're part of the family. We love you no matter what. However, this is our view of homosexuality. This is our teaching. This is our perspective. Here's the scientific evidence, which, by the way, supports our religious perception. People think that one's religious Catholic perception is very different from the science. Not at all. It's completely compatible. Here's the evidence. Look at it, and you decide. You owe it to yourself to try to consider the possibility of change. You're only 25, 30 years old. You have your life ahead of you. It's a very difficult lifestyle. Even gays will admit that. And you owe it to yourself to consider the possibility of change.
All right. This is a continuation from that same caller. This is back this 2013 interview, Catholic Answers with Patrick Coffin, where this caller called in saying that he had two sons experiencing homosexual inclination, same-sex attraction. And listen to what happens here. They're breaking through the denial to really get at the root. This is so powerful. Here it is.
One day, my second son with same-sex attraction talked to my wife, and we discussed about all this, and he said this. Sometimes Dad was so busy working and so busy out, and he was trying to bring the money to the family, but I didn't see him. And he said to my wife, but also you, where were you when I need you? So there's also not only the absence of the father, but sometimes the absence of the mother.
Yep.
This is important. In the program.
Sure. Dr. Nicolosi, is it helpful to get into the blame game at this point?
No, it's not about blame. It actually could be the opening for the client to consider the possibility of change. A lot of gays deny, I had a perfect family and there was nothing wrong with my parenting, but we know that we have the typical distant, attached father, uninvolved, emotionally uninvolved father, and that we said that in the beginning of the show, and we're seeing here just another example. Now, what you might do, Michael, is say, this was a family problem. It's not that you have a problem, you're saying to your sons. It was a family problem. I was not there. I neglected you. I made mistakes. Maybe your mother made mistakes, too. Maybe she was not emotionally there. Let's see this as a family problem. What can we do? Here we are today. Let's develop a deeper relationship. Let's try to repair some of that father-son deficit that you experienced.
All right, so important to see this rightly ordered, right? To see it truly as it is, science, natural law. Yes, let's bring the faith into it and love our neighbor by telling our neighbor the truth and then helping our neighbor as appropriate. We can only do it if we embrace the actual objective truth of all of this. Final clip today, we're going to get into what can be done. It comes in on this clip, again, going back to the sad reality of bishops and cardinals who are off the mark on this. Here it is.
My question is regarding the, there's a big push always for vocations to the priesthood.
Sure.
And yet in the church, we see so many bishops and we see even cardinals that seem to play up to the gays and the lesbians.
Sure.
In the sense of holding masses even, and
sure.
And they hug and kiss at mass and everything else like that.
Sure.
And to me, that's just, what can be done about that? That's a
what can be done about it? What can be done about it is for the Orthodox Catholics to really protest, and not protest in anger and in a kind of homophobic, irrational, angry reaction. I think that we have to be educated. When I say we, I'm talking about the Orthodox laity, because Vatican doctrine is on our side. If you read the 1986 letter, the Ratzinger letter on the pastoral care of homosexual persons, or anything that really comes out of the Vatican, it's really beautiful and elegant, and just very, very wise and very insightful. By the way, the Protestant denominations have nothing compared to what we have in terms of the beautiful doctrine, but yet we're not using it. We have to become educated. We have to know the answers. We have to bear in mind the distinction between gay and homosexual. We have to bear in mind the fact that science has not discovered a gay gene yet. It's not biologically determined. We have to, affirm the person but not affirm the sexual orientation. We just have to be intelligent about it, and we have to be willing to speak up.
All right, Tom Walton, your comments.
Yeah, again, just awesome audios from Joe Nicolosi, who passed away a few years ago, but he was right on the mark. Again, he studied over 1,000 cases and saw these same patterns repeat over and over again. And this is what we've got to really get out there, especially so our young people can judge for themselves from this man's own words.
Yes, the Courage Apostolate website, couragerc.net. Joe Sr.'s work, josephnicolosi.com. His books are listed there as well. Joe Jr., reintegrativetherapy.com, reintegrativetherapy.com. And as Joe Sr. said in that last clip there, we've got to be intelligent about it and willing to speak up. Be intelligent about it and be willing to speak up. If you have any comment on this or any question you want to throw our way, Jim H. at thestationofthecross.com. God bless you.
If the cares